What's going on, guys? Arson Chains here, back with another video. And this is sort of a part 2 to the video I filmed, I think 2 or 3 videos ago, which was the beginner's video. And something I brushed upon in that video was brands, and I really wanted to elaborate more on that because I definitely remember as a beginner, I was really intimidated with all the brands and all the pricing, and I think just for beginners it'd be a good thing to know about what's good pricing for certain things and what stuff's worth your money and what stuff's not. So this video is going to be more talking about that. The first part of this video is going to be towards the real beginners that are working with just DC locomotives. And DC, just to re-elaborate, is the one where you just throttle forward, backwards, that's it. It's not digital. So it's probably the one that most beginners have. So I'm going to sort of break this down to sort of like some tiers. So our first tier down, sort of not in the bottom, but the lesser quality stuff. So yeah, it is in the bottom. But we've got Tyco and we have Lifelike. This stuff I don't recommend getting. Tyco, some of the old stuff is sort of worth it sometimes if it's cool, but most of the time you can't really expect good performance out of those locomotives, so I personally would advise against those. So those are our first tier. So our second tier is sort of complicated because Montua and Bachmann are the two I would sort of include in that sort of second tier area. Bachmann now has much better quality stuff they make, so I don't know if they make many DC locomotives now that are just individual. If you're shopping around, you'll probably just be able to find the older Bachmann stuff, which I, again, sort of don't recommend getting. The quality of the motors is lesser. They have a pancake motor or a 3-pole motor. I think pancakes are 3-pole most of the time, but either way, I recommend against that. So yeah, and then there's Montua. I like Montua, actually. It's a pretty good brand. The stuff I like to buy is mostly from the 50s. I'll actually get one to show you guys. I only have the locomotive currently, but this is a Montua from the 50s. It's called an 040 shifter. And I actually restored this and I made a video on it. But this thing is completely die-cast. The only thing that isn't metal really is the cab and some very small detail parts. Actually, I don't think there are many plastic pieces. Just the gear and the cab and the little drawbar. But anyways, this is an old Montua, and this thing is a workhorse. Really charming locomotive, actually, too. Most of the reason why I got it is just it was a really charming loco, and it's from the 50s, so it's kind of cool. Old locos, you know, just have a charm to them. So basically, if you can find Montua locomotives for under $100, I mean, something like this will probably run you like 20 to 30 bucks on eBay, and most of the time they're sold as is, which probably means they don't run too well. Once you get into, you know, restoring locomotives or just, you know, oiling them up, they run a lot better. But for you guys, for your real beginners, I wouldn't recommend buying the old Montuas unless you want to have a project. So yeah, Montua locomotives, they sell bigger ones too. Those ones, probably under $100, I think would be a good price for those. So moving up the tier again is probably the old Atherns, and I guess it's just sort of Atherns in their own tier. I can't think of too many other major brands you'll find. Maybe IHC, International Hobby Corp, which is a bunch of brands that are sold under the IHC name. Those ones are run pretty well, actually. The motors in those are pretty good. I guess you'll find some Rivarossi stuff. Rivarossi is sort of the same thing with IHC, just sort of some pretty decent stuff. I can't really think of too many trains to actually avoid from those IHC and Rivarossi, so it really depends upon what you're buying, because IHC and AHM and Rivarossi have all made some sort of expensive DC locomotives, like geared locomotives, like a Heisler, which is a logging locomotive. So those ones can probably run you up to about 120 to 150 bucks. But for the lower end Rivarossi locos and IHC and AHM, those ones would probably be about 20 to 60 bucks, I'd say, if they're in sort of the used condition you find at a lot of train stores or train shows. So yeah, that's what I'd recommend paying for those. Athearn blue boxes really just pay, I don't know, it's sort of a lot of visual, so if it's a lot of visual stuff, so if the locomotive just looks trashed, it's probably not going to run 100% well. Obviously, that's not the case for some things. I mean, obviously, I've had terrible looking locomotives come in to me and they run perfectly, but a lot of the case, if it's just destroyed, it's probably not going to run very well. But sometimes you can get some Athearn Blue Boxes. 20 to 50 bucks is what you want to pay for those Athearn Blue Box diesels. So that's sort of what you want to pay for those. So the next thing I want to talk about is the DCC brands. So the DCC is definitely a higher step up from DC. It's where you can run multiple locomotives on your track, and you can control them from one cab or controller, basically. You can do different speeds, different sounds if you have sound locos. It really opens a whole door to modeling. But definitely, I want to talk about this really quickly. DC locomotives definitely have a charm that DCC locomotives most of the time don't have. It's hard to explain. It's once you've experienced both of them, actually playing around with both of them, you'll recognize that DC locos definitely have a charm that DCC just can't replicate. And I can't really explain it. That'd be a good video topic actually. But anyways, DCC locomotive brands. Again, at the bottom we sort of have Bachmann. They make some pretty good DCC sound locomotives, like I talked about before. They make some sound value steam locos that run in the $150 to $200 range that I would actually recommend getting for beginners and myself. I got one and I was very impressed by it. And actually, I'm running it around the layout today. You know, it's on the layout right now. So it's a locomotive I'd 100% recommend. Bachmann sound value is definitely good bang for the buck. So up above a tier from that would definitely have to be sort of like the Walthers, the Intermountain, all those guys, like basically Walthers, Intermountain, Athearn Genesis, all those guys make some of the top tier diesels in HO scale with DCC sound. So all those ones you can find anything, you know, your Dash 9s, SD70 ACEs, GP38-2s, you know, you can find pretty much anything from those three brands. Definitely a few left out, Kato or Kato. They make some really good DCC diesel locomotives. So probably a little step up from that would be your Rapido and your Scale Trans. And those guys have really stepped up in the market recently. They make some really, really high quality diesel locomotives. Not in much of the way for steam. I know Rapido made, I think, a Royal Hudson, but other than that, they make diesels. And those diesels are really nice. They all come with loc sound or lock sound most of the time. So I really recommend those if you're wanting to get a really realistic looking diesel locomotive. And finally, the one thing that really, really struggles, I think, in DCC sound, and that is DCC sound steamers. And there's a lot of, I don't know, there's a lot of sort of controversy on which DCC sound locomotives, steam locomotives specifically, that you want to buy. I think the main ones I see being sold, Bachmann, Athearn Genesis, MTH, and Broadway Limited. And I want to talk about all four of those. Bachmann, obviously, it's what I've said, good bang for the buck. Athearn Genesis, probably the best detail out of these four. Probably the worst sound, on par with Bachmann, because they use Tsunami sound decoders. Tsunami 1, Tsunami 2, QSI, I think, or not Q, yeah, they had some QSI older, but some of their older stuff. But they did get into loc sound, lock sound. So that stuff sounds a lot better than the Tsunami, in my opinion. But basically, Athearn Genesis is the best detail. They are plastic, so just keep that in mind. Bachmann and Athearn Genesis are both plastic. Then we got MTH, and MTH definitely has quite a bit of controversy in the HO scale market. The best way I can describe it is they're more toy-like. They don't have the details that Athearn Genesis has. They are sort of the gimmicky, you could say. They're sort of gimmicky. They have smoke. They probably have the best sound of these four. Definitely the best sound, in my opinion. So they definitely are sort of the O scale in HO scale. They're sort of toy-like. The details are a little more crude. They're a little harder to work on, actually, in my opinion. But they do sound the best, and they do smoke. They do the best smoke in HO scale, MTH for sure. All right, and lastly, we have Broadway Limited. And Broadway Limited, they have lots of different lines. They have QSI, Paragon, Paragon 2, Paragon 3. So, I don't know, Broadway Limited sort of goes in between Athearn and MTH. Sort of a mix between both. They have the puffing smoke. Definitely does not hold a candle to MTH's, but their puffing smoke is pretty good. I will mention that Broadway and MTH both are die-cast. For the most part, their locomotives are die-cast. That's a really nice thing. they'll get much more pulling power than the Atherans usually. But anyways, Broadway Limited sort of meets in the middle between MTH and Athearn Genesis in the sense of the detail isn't as bad as the MTH. There's more detail on the Broadway Limited than the MTH. They don't sound nearly as well. Don't get me wrong, it sounds pretty good. But Paragon 3 does not hold anything to Proto Sound 3. Proto Sound 3, in my opinion, sounds the best for HO scale steamers. So that's sort of where it leans towards MTH. They're a little more toy-like than Athearn, I guess you could say, because it does have the smoke and the not as nice detail. So yeah, that being said, I think I really covered the things that I wanted to talk about in this video. I went over track brands, I think, pretty decently last time for you beginners. So yeah, if you guys think I missed anything, any brands or anything else you want me to talk about, please let me know in the comments. I respond to almost every single comment I get, so definitely leave a comment. I will respond. So any questions, comments, anything you want, just put it down in the comments. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.